Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Beatles Forever. So I wasn't really searching for this topic, but it popped up on my news feed online, and I thought it was interesting, and I wanted to share the information. It's kind of a lighthearted story. Both articles are about Paul McCartney and food that he likes. So the first story comes from Yahoo Life, and it was first published on August 24th, 2025. Paul McCartney's 2-ingredient comfort meal makes us love him even more. Naturally, it's a British classic. And this story is by Annie Campbell. Just when we thought we'd uncovered all of Paul McCartney's best recipes, another gem pops up. And it's not a gourmet baked good like his famous brownies, or even a festive cocktail like his signature Margarita. No, this is much simpler and far less fussy, yet somehow it makes him even more endearing. We'll admit, our fascination with the Beatles legend is never ending, especially when it comes to what Paul eats. Ever since he and his wife Linda famously went vegetarian in the 1970s, McCartney has been a vocal champion of meat-free movement. And while he's known for speaking up for animals, he's also known for keeping things delightfully down to earth in the kitchen. Recently, one of his favorite comfort foods resurfaced, a dish that's entirely meat-free, yet still hearty, homey, and satisfying. Paul McCartney's 2-ingredient comfort meal, hidden in a vintage cookbook titled Favorite Foods of the Famous, which features a collection of recipes from celebrities of the 60s and 70s, lies a contribution from Paul himself: egg and chips. And no, we don't mean the bagged crunchy chips we often think of here in the States. Chips is a British way of saying thick-cut fries. Pair them with a couple of fried eggs and you got Paul McCartney's ultimate comfort meal. There's just something so heartwarming about one of the world's greatest stars finding joy in such simple, unrefined dish. I know this is hardly a cordon bleu dish, he writes, beside the recipe, but it really is my favorite. But we get it. Freshly fried potatoes are the perfect partner for soft, custardy eggs, especially when the yolks are left runny enough for dipping. The recipe even calls for a classic double fry technique to make the potatoes perfectly golden and crisp. It's the kind of a hearty duo that works at breakfast, lunch, dinner, or anywhere in between, and hits the spot every time. How to make Paul McCartney's egg and chips? Paul's recipe calls for just 1 pound of potatoes and 2 eggs per person. But you're definitely going to want to have a small metal sieve or a fry basket on hand to make things easier. Per Macca's method, you start by peeling and slicing the potatoes into thick finger-like strips. Soak them briefly in cold water and then drain and dry them thoroughly. In a large pan, heat up your fat or oil to a steady temperature, then lower the potatoes into the pan using a sieve or a fry basket. Fry the potatoes until lightly golden, then remove them and let them drain for a minute or two. Then comes the second fry. Bump up the heat, then take the potatoes for another dunk in the oil until crispy or a few minutes. Drain the excess oil, then season with salt and pepper. To finish things off, fry up 2 eggs per person. Sunny side up works best for those inclined to dipping. And there you have it, Paul McCartney's 2-ingredient wonder. So it may not be gourmet, but if it's good enough for Paul's table, it's certainly good enough for ours. The next story comes from Yahoo, and it was also published on August 24th, 2025. Paul McCartney's go-to sandwich is this British classic many Americans won't recognize. This story is by Matthew Spina. Paul McCartney might just be the single most recognizable and successful musician of the 20th century, but when it comes to sandwiches, he's still a guy from Liverpool. Despite the massive fame they achieved, many of the Beatles' favorite foods are simple, blue-collar classics, including fish and chips and Heinz canned baked beans. Of course, McCartney became most famous for his turn to vegetarianism in the 70s, claiming that he and his wife Linda made the switch after watching lambs on their farm while eating lamb chops. McCartney's favorite post-performance sandwich is one long enjoyed by his fellow countrymen, the cheese and pickle sandwich. The sandwich is just as simple as it sounds, containing cheese, ideally English cheddar, bread, pickles, and an optional spread of butter. We would liken it to a sandwich version of the British ploughman's lunch, which is at its most basic includes bread, cheese, onions, and pickles. However, the pickle part of the equation is not quite what Americans probably imagine. McCartney specifies that it's the Branston pickle, which is traditionally used. More akin to chutney than spears of cucumber, it is a relish condiment made from a wide variety of vegetables. These include rutabaga, cauliflower, carrots, and onion, which are flavored with spices and a malt vinegar-based pickling liquid. And it's the reason the cheese and pickle sandwich works so well. The British cheese and pickle sandwich is Paul McCartney's go-to after a concert. Branston pickle can transform a simple cheese sandwich into something special with its uniquely complex flavor. It's not just tangy as a pickling liquid, it's also made with tomato puree, date paste, and apples. It hits a total taste bud combo of sharp, spicy, sweet with a strong umami element as well. With so much flavor, it needs very little else to complement it. As for choosing the best cheddar, a nutty aged option is the perfect partner. If you want to recreate one of McCartney's meals, Branston pickle can often be found in the international sections of the grocery store with other British specialty ingredients. To complete the dish, you could look for bloomer bread, a rustic, crusty white loaf with a soft interior. It's commonly used for the sandwich. While a classic British cheese and pickle might not be familiar to some people, it doesn't sound as unusual as McCartney's other favorite sandwich. The music artist revealed on a press tour for a cookbook that he likes to stack bagels with a divisive condiment: Marmite, lettuce, hummus, cheese, pickles, more lettuce, and on top of that, honey mustard. It's hard to question the taste of the man who wrote Yesterday, but maybe it's better to try a dish the rest of Britain already approves of first. Or perhaps give the lentil soup recipe McCartney revealed on The Simpsons a shot. And then our last story comes out of Yahoo 5 months ago, but it kind of fit the theme we were doing, and it's Paul McCartney's favorite childhood sandwich gives dentists nightmares. This story was released on May 11th, and it's by Joe Hoffner. As one half of the most celebrated songwriting duo in pop music history, Paul McCartney is generally cast as a sweet sentimentalist to John Lennon's acerbic avant-garde iconoclast. This is, of course, a gross oversimplification. McCartney's interest in experimental tape loops resulted in Tomorrow Never Knows, one of the most out-there tunes in the Beatles discography. But his reputation as a Beatle who wrote silly love songs stuck. To a certain extent, the shoe did fit. After all, the man managed to make a song about a guy who killed people with a hammer sound like something your grandmother might like. With that in mind, the fact that McCartney's favorite childhood snack was sugar sandwiches seems comically on the nose. In an Instagram Q&A with his daughter Mary, Paul talked about his love for his sugar buddies. Buddy is an English slang term for sandwich. Although he described them as seriously decadent and not good for you at all, the fondness in his voice is evident as he remembers them. It was just like bread and butter, but with sugar on it. Ha hey, and that was it. The star's tastes have clearly changed since his childhood in Liverpool. Notably, he became a health-conscious vegetarian, and while appearing in a cameo role, McCartney contributed a lentil soup recipe to the episode of The Simpsons, where Lisa quits eating meat. But the food you loved as a kid never really leaves you, does it? Sugar sandwiches are a childhood staple on both sides of the pond. An important bit of context for young McCartney's love of sugar buddies: he grew up in Liverpool in the aftermath of World War II, when the United Kingdom was still recovering from the Blitz. Liverpool in particular was devastated by German bombs, as it was an industrial hub of considerable importance. London was the only city hit harder. Rationing didn't completely end in the United Kingdom until 1954, when McCartney was 12, and the economic impact of the war lingered even longer. Sugar sandwiches, then, were a tasty and affordable way for a child to enjoy something sweet, whether their family was rationing or just tightening the metaphorical belt. With that said, the sugar buddies were in fact also eaten before the war. Other countries got in on the action too. Sugar sandwiches became popular in America during the Great Depression, as with other simple economical dishes like water pie or Martha Stewart's beloved onion sandwiches. And Australians will occasionally partake too, although they prefer a variation called fairy bread, which is bread and butter with hundreds and thousands, aka nonpareils, sprinkled over the top. If you have a sweet tooth, why not give it a try? It only takes a sprinkling of sugar to make it delicious. And even if you think it's a lousy idea, what are you going to do? Argue with the guy who wrote yesterday? So I'm going to end the video here. I hope you enjoyed the video. It was neat to see what Paul enjoys eating. And a while back, I had looked into what the Beatles ate in the past, and that was neat to find out too. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you haven't subscribed, if you could do so, it would help the channel to grow, as well as giving it a thumbs up. It's all a great help. And if you haven't clicked on the notification bell, if you could do that, it lets you know when a video is posted. More importantly, I want to wish everyone a good day, and tune in again soon to the Beatles Forever. Thank you. Bye.